Hey there, friends. Imagine this. It's night, pitch black, and you find yourself lost in a dense forest. No phone signal, no GPS, just you and the eerie sounds around. Panic starts to set in, right? What would you do? Climb a tree for safety? Try to start a fire? Or just sit and hope for rescue? Now, think back even further, way before smartphones and compasses. What about our ancient ancestors, those early humans who wandered the earth millions of years ago? They didn't have Google Maps or emergency beacons. If they got lost in the wilderness, what on earth did they do to survive? You might think, oh, they were tough. They had survival instincts. But trust me, it wasn't just that. There were some seriously clever and unexpected tricks up their sleeves, tricks that might surprise you, and that could even help you if you ever find yourself in a similar pickle. So, are you ready to dive into this fascinating journey, to uncover the secrets of how our ancient ancestors navigated the unknown and stayed alive? Strap in, because it's going to be a wild ride filled with surprising twists and turns. Let's go. In the era that our ancient ancestors roamed, the world was a vastly different place. Geographically, vast expanses of land were unrecognizable compared to today. Continents hadn't shifted into the positions we know, and landscapes were constantly evolving due to tectonic activity. Mountains were being formed, and valleys were carved out by powerful forces of nature. The climate was extremely unpredictable and harsh. During the Ice Ages, which spanned significant periods of human history, temperatures plummeted, and vast sheets of ice covered much of the northern hemisphere. Glaciers advanced, crushing everything in their path and drastically altering the habitats. In such conditions, finding food and shelter was a monumental task. The cold was relentless, and hypothermia was a constant threat. Even in warmer periods, life wasn't easy. Wildfires could rage through forests, destroying everything in their wake and forcing humans to flee. Torrential rains and floods could sweep away their makeshift shelters and any meager possessions they had. Diseases and parasites were rampant, as sanitation was non-existent, and infections could quickly become life-threatening. Not to mention the constant danger from predators like saber-toothed tigers and dire wolves, which prowled the lands, ready to attack unsuspecting humans. In this hostile environment, every day was a struggle for survival. Ancient humans had to adapt to these ever-changing conditions, constantly on the move, in search of food, water, and safety. It was a brutal world, where only the strongest and most adaptable had a chance to survive and pass on their genes. When we think of ancient humans, many of us have a certain image in our minds. We picture them as brutish creatures, hunched over and barely resembling modern humans. We envision them living in dark, dank caves, with nothing more than rudimentary stone tools and animal skins to keep them warm. We imagine their lives as being dominated by constant hunts, where they would chase after prey with makeshift spears, relying solely on their physical strength and primitive instincts. We assume that their days were filled with bloody battles for survival, fighting not just against the elements and predators, but also against other groups of humans for scarce resources. We might think of them as having a limited understanding of the world around them, with no real concept of culture or society beyond basic family units. Their communication, we believe, was just a series of grunts and gestures, devoid of any complex language or thought. And when it comes to their survival skills, we often underestimate their intelligence. We assume that they just relied on instinct and luck, that they stumbled through life, barely managing to scrape by. We don't give them credit for the ingenuity and creativity that was necessary for them to thrive in such a challenging environment. But the truth is, our ancient ancestors were much more sophisticated than we often give them credit for. They had complex social structures, developed tools that were far more advanced than we realize, and had a deep understanding of their surroundings. Their lives were filled with more than just survival of the fittest. There was a richness to their culture and a depth to their understanding of the world that we're about to uncover. Back in the day, when our ancestors were just getting started on this crazy journey called life, they didn't have fancy tools like we do. No smartphones to order pizza or cars to get around. They had to rely on their wits and what nature provided. And one of the coolest things they figured out was how to make stone tools. Imagine walking through the woods and you spot a nice, sharp rock. For early humans, that was like hitting the jackpot. They'd pick it up and start bashing it against other rocks to make smaller, sharper pieces. This was called knapping. And it was a seriously important skill. There were different methods they used. The hammerstone technique was like whacking the rock with a smaller stone to chip off flakes. Kind of like hitting a piñata, but with rocks. Then there was the anvil technique, where they'd put the rock on a hard surface and hit it from above. Like playing a weird game of tennis. But the ball was a rock, and the racket was another rock. These stone tools were a game changer. For hunting, they made spearheads that were super sharp and could bring down big game like deer or bison. Just imagine a group of early humans chasing after a woolly mammoth, throwing spears tipped with these stone points. It was like their version of high-tech weaponry. And for gathering, stone tools helped them cut through tough plants to get at the juicy parts. They could scrape bark off trees to make shelters, or scrape the meat off animal bones. It was like having a Swiss Army knife, but made of stone. These tools weren't just useful, they showed how clever our ancestors were. They didn't just rely on their fists or teeth to survive. They used their brains to create something that gave them a huge advantage in the wild. It's amazing to think that these simple stone tools were the foundation for all the awesome technology we have today. So the next time you pick up a knife to cut an apple, just remember, you're continuing a tradition that goes back millions of years. Alright friends, let's talk about something that's lit, literally, fire. You know, the thing that keeps us warm, cooks our food, and scares away creepy creatures in the night. But for our ancient ancestors, fire was so much more. It was like a magical force that changed their lives forever. At first, they probably didn't know what to do with fire. Maybe they saw a lightning strike start a forest fire and were like, whoa, what's that? But then they realized, hey, this thing is awesome. So they started to figure out how to use it. The easiest way to get fire was to just find it in the wild. Maybe a forest fire died down, and they could take some burning embers and bring them back to their camp. They had to be really careful to keep it going, adding wood and stuff to keep the flames alive. It was like having a precious pet that needed constant attention. But what if there was no natural fire around? Well, that's when they got creative. One way was the friction method. You've probably seen this in movies, where someone rubs two sticks together really fast. It sounds easy, but it's actually super hard. Your arm cells get tired, and you're just rubbing and rubbing, hoping something happens. But eventually, if you're lucky, you get a little spark that can start a fire. Another cool way was using flint and steel. Flint is a hard rock, and when you strike it against steel, it makes sparks. It's like a tiny fireworks show. Our ancestors would use those sparks to light dry grass or leaves, and boom, fire. Fire did so much for these early humans. It kept them warm during cold nights, when temperatures could drop and hypothermia was a real threat. It also cooked their food, which made it safer to eat and easier to digest. Raw meat can be full of bacteria and parasites, but fire killed all that nasty stuff. And fire wasn't just practical, it had a psychological effect too. It gave them a sense of security and comfort in the dark, scary world. They could gather around the fire, share stories, and feel safe from predators. It was like a symbol of hope and civilization in a harsh and unpredictable environment. So the next time you light a candle or turn on your gas stove, think about how amazing it is that humans have been playing with fire for millions of years. It's a tradition that's as old as time itself. Okay, gang, it's time to get serious about survival. We've talked about stone tools and fire, but now, we're going to dive into how our ancient ancestors got their protein. By hunting, hunting wasn't just about running after animals and hoping to catch them. It was a strategic team effort that required a lot of planning and coordination. Kind of like a football game, but with actual lives on the line. One of the most basic hunting techniques was using traps. Our ancestors were genius at setting these up. They'd find a spot where animals traveled often, like a narrow path or near a water source. Then they'd dig a big pit, cover it with branches and leaves, and wait for the unsuspecting animal to fall in. It was like setting a booby trap, but for dinner. Spear hunting was also a big deal. They'd make these long, sharp spears out of wood and stone. Sometimes, they'd even add a throwing stick, called a spear thrower, or atlatl. This thing was like a supercharger for the spear, making it go faster and farther. Imagine a group of hunters, hiding in the bushes, waiting for a herd of deer or bison to pass by. Then, all at once, they'd jump out and start throwing their spears. It was like a scene from a movie, but it was real life for these early humans. And let's not forget about the bow and arrow. This was a total game changer. It allowed hunters to shoot from a distance, which was safer and more effective. Making a bow and arrow wasn't easy though. It took a lot of skill and patience to find the right materials and shape them just right. But once they had it, it was like having a secret weapon. Hunting wasn't just about food. It was also a way for these ancient communities to bond. After a successful hunt, they'd come together and celebrate. They'd share the meat, tell stories, and feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. It was a way of life that brought them together and helped them survive in a tough world. So the next time you're at a barbecue, grilling up some burgers, just remember, you're part of a long tradition of hunters who've been providing for their families and communities for millions of years. It's a legacy that's as old as humanity itself. All right, my friends, it's time to talk about the other half of the survival equation, gathering. While hunting was all about the thrill of the chase and bringing home the bacon, gathering was the quiet, patient work that kept our ancient ancestors alive and well. Now, you might think gathering is just picking fruits and berries. But it was so much more than that. It was a deep understanding of the natural world, a knowledge that was passed down from generation to generation. Women were the gatherers, and they were total badasses. They knew which plants were safe to eat and which ones were poisonous. They could spot a ripe berry from a mile away and knew exactly where to find the juiciest roots. One of the first things they learned was which fruits and berries were edible. They'd taste a little bit, see if it made them sick, and if it didn't, they'd remember it for next time. It was like a natural science experiment, but with their lives on the line. Roots were also a big part of their diet. They'd use stone tools to dig up these delicious, nutrient-packed roots. Think of them as ancient potatoes, but way cooler. And nuts and seeds were a great source of protein and fat. They'd crack open nuts with stones and gather seeds from all kinds of plants. But gathering wasn't just about food, it was also about medicine. Our ancestors knew which plants could heal wounds, cure sickness, and ease pain. They'd use leaves and bark to make poultices for wounds and chew on certain roots to relieve pain. And let's not forget about the social aspect of gathering. It was a chance for women to bond and teach their children. They'd spend hours walking through the forests and fields, talking, laughing, and sharing stories. It was a way of life that was just as important as hunting, but often gets overlooked. So the next time you're snacking on some fruits and nuts, just remember, you're following in the footsteps of some seriously smart and resourceful ancestors who knew how to survive and thrive in a harsh and unpredictable world. In the wild and unpredictable world of our ancient ancestors, survival was no easy feat. It required more than just individual strength and skill. It demanded social collaboration and teamwork on an unprecedented scale. These early humans recognized the power of numbers and the importance of working together to overcome the countless challenges they faced. Their social structure was intricate and dynamic. Initially, they lived in small family groups, bound by kinship ties. But as time went on, these groups merged to form larger communities, known as bands or tribes. Within these groups, there was a clear division of labor based on age, gender, and skill. Men, being physically stronger, often took on the role of hunters. They would work together in coordinated efforts to track and take down large game. Communication was key, as they used a combination of gestures, grunts, and eventually, rudimentary language to signal to each other and ensure a successful hunt. Women, on the other hand, were primarily responsible for gathering food, caring for the young, and maintaining the camp. Their knowledge of the local flora and fauna was invaluable, as they knew which plants were edible, which had medicinal properties, and where to find the best sources of food. Children, too, played an important role in the community. From a young age, they were taught essential survival skills by their parents and elders. Boys learned to hunt and track, while girls learned to gather and care for the young. This passing down of knowledge was crucial for the survival and continuity of the group. Social bonds were also strengthened through shared rituals and ceremonies. At the end of a successful hunt or during times of celebration, the entire community would gather together to share food, tell stories, and perform dances. These rituals not only brought the group closer together, but also reinforced their sense of identity and belonging. In times of conflict with other groups or predators, the community would band together for protection. They would form defensive formations, using their tools and numbers to deter any threats. This sense of unity and cooperation was essential for their survival. In a world filled with danger, the social collaboration and teamwork of our ancient ancestors was a testament to their intelligence and adaptability. They understood that by working together, they could overcome the harsh conditions of their environment and ensure the survival of their species. It's a lesson that remains just as important today, reminding us that strength lies in unity and cooperation. As the environment around them constantly shifted and changed, our ancient ancestors were forced to adapt and innovate in order to survive. They couldn't rely on the same old strategies. They had to think outside the box and come up with new and creative solutions to the challenges they faced. One of the most significant examples of this innovations was their migration out of Africa and into new environments. As they ventured into colder climates, they had to find ways to stay warm and adapt to the different resources available. They started to make clothing from animal skins, using bone needles and sinew thread to sew together furs and hides. This not only kept them warm, but also allowed them to move more freely and hunt more effectively in the colder regions. When they encountered new landscapes, like forests or marshes, they had to learn how to navigate and find food in these unfamiliar environments. They developed new tools and techniques for hunting and gathering. For example, in marshy areas, they learned to make reed boats and fish traps to catch fish and other aquatic animals. In forests, they learned to track new types of game and use different plants for food and medicine. Language also played a crucial role in their adaptation. As they encountered new challenges and discovered new things, they needed a way to communicate this information to each other. The development of more complex language allowed them to share knowledge, coordinate hunting parties, and plan for the future. It was a powerful tool that helped them survive and thrive in a constantly changing world. Our ancient ancestors also showed innovation in their use of shelter. In different environments, they adapted their living spaces to suit their needs. In colder climates, they built semi-subterranean dwellings, using animal skins and sod to insulate against the cold. In warmer climates, they built using branches and leaves, creating airy structures to keep cool and dry. They also showed remarkable innovation in their use of fire. In addition to using it for warmth and cooking, they learned to use fire as a tool for hunting and clearing land. They would set controlled fires and dyed fires to drive game animals into ambushes or to clear areas for easier hunting and gathering. This innovative use of fire allowed them to manipulate their environment to their advantage in every aspect of their lives. Our ancient ancestors showed a remarkable ability to adapt and innovate. They didn't let the challenges of their environment defeat them. Instead, they used their intelligence and creativity to find new ways to survive and thrive. It's a legacy that we continue to build on today, as we face new challenges and adapt to a constantly changing world. Alright, gang, let's take a fun little detour and see how our ancient ancestors fit into the world of pop culture. You know, like how they'd fit right in on a modern-day reality show, or in your favorite superhero movie. Imagine our early human friends in a survival reality show, like Survivor. They'd totally be the underdogs, with no modern gadgets or advantages. But just watch them use their stone tools and fire-making skills to outwit, outplay, and outlast the other contestants. They'd be like the ultimate survival experts, showing these modern-day players how it's really done. Or, what about in a superhero movie? Picture an ancient human as the original superhero. Using their hunting skills and knowledge of the natural world to protect their tribe from invading predators. They'd be like the original huntman, with a bow and arrow made from natural materials, taking down fierce beasts and saving the day. It'd be like a cross between the Avengers and the Croods, but with way cooler ancient tech. In video games, our ancestors would be the ultimate Easter eggs. Imagine playing a game like Assassin's Creed and discovering a hidden level where you play as an early human, using your primitive tools to navigate a prehistoric world. You'd have to hunt for food, avoid dangerous creatures, and use your wits to survive. It'd be like a whole new level of gaming, where you really have to rely on your instincts and ancient skills to make it through. And let's not forget about TV shows. They'd be like the ultimate stars of a historical drama, with their intricate social structures and fascinating survival stories. Each episode could focus on a different challenge they face, from hunting a massive mammoth to surviving a harsh winter. It'd be like Game of Thrones, but with way more realistic and less dramatic politics. So the next time you're watching your favorite TV show or playing a video game, just remember, our ancient ancestors were the original badasses, paving the way for all the cool characters and stories we enjoy today. They might not have had fancy costumes or special effects, but their real-life adventures were just as exciting and inspiring as anything we see on screen. Okay, my friends, it's time for some good old-fashioned humor to lighten the mood. After all, learning about our ancient ancestors doesn't have to be all serious and boring. We can have some fun while we're at it. Let's talk about those stone tools for a second. Imagine our ancestors trying to make a spearhead, whacking rocks together for hours on end. It's like the prehistoric version of trying to build IKEA furniture, except without the instructions or Swedish meatballs. They're just bashing away, hoping for the best, and probably cursing under their breath when it doesn't work out. And what about fire making? Rubbing two sticks together to make fire sounds easy enough, right? Well, try doing it yourself sometime, and you'll see how frustrating it can be. It's like trying to start a car with a jump rope. You're just going at it, arms aching, hoping for a spark, and wondering if you'll ever get this thing going. Then there's hunting. Picture a group of early humans chasing after a woolly mammoth, hoping to bring it down with their spears. It's like playing a game of tag, but with a massive, furry creature that could easily stomp you into the ground. Talk about a high-stakes game. And let's not forget about social collaboration. Imagine these early humans trying to coordinate a hunt or build a shelter, all while communicating with grunts and gestures. It's like a scene from a comedy show, where everyone is just trying to figure out what the other person is saying. Over there. Huh? What do you mean? It's hilarious when you think about it. But despite all the challenges and difficulties, our ancestors persevered. They kept at it, making stone tools, starting fires, and hunting for food, all while trying to survive in a harsh and unpredictable world. It's kind of inspiring when you think about it, and it makes you appreciate just how far we've come as a species. So the next time you're struggling with a task or feeling frustrated, just remember, our ancient ancestors went through a lot worse, and they managed to survive and thrive. Maybe you'll find a little bit of inspiration and humor in their struggle. In this epic journey through the lives of our ancient ancestors, we've uncovered a wealth of knowledge about how they survived in the harsh and unpredictable wilderness. Let's take a moment to review the key skills and surprising insights that helped them thrive. We learned about the importance of stone tool making, a craft that allowed our ancestors to hunt, gather, and defend themselves. Using simple techniques like the hammerstone and anvil methods, they transformed rocks into sharp and effective tools, giving them a crucial advantage in a world filled with danger. Firemaking was another life-changing skill. Whether it was scavenging embers from natural fires or using friction or flint and steel, our ancestors mastered the art of creating and maintaining fire. It provided warmth, cooked food, and gave them a sense of security in the dark of night. Hunting and gathering were essential for sustenance. Men worked together in coordinated efforts to hunt large game, using traps, spears, and eventually, the bow and arrow. Women, meanwhile, were experts in gathering plants, roots, nuts, and seeds, as well as identifying medicinal herbs. Social collaboration and teamwork were vital for survival. Living in bands or tribes, they had a clear division of labor and shared knowledge through rituals and ceremonies. This sense of community and cooperation helped them face external threats and adapt to a constantly changing environment. And we've seen how our ancestors were innovative problem solvers. From making clothing out of animal skins to developing new hunting techniques for different landscapes, they showed a remarkable ability to adapt and thrive in diverse conditions. All these skills and insights demonstrate that our ancient ancestors were far more sophisticated and adaptable than we often give them credit for. They used their intelligence, creativity, and social bonds to overcome the challenges of their world, paving the way for the human civilization we know today. As we conclude our exploration of how ancient humans survived in the wilderness, there are still countless mysteries and fascinating questions to ponder. Let's dive into some thought-provoking topics that will keep you engaged long after this video ends. Imagine you were transported back in time to live among our ancient ancestors. What survival skills do you think you would need to learn the most? Would you be able to master the art of making stone tools, or figure out how to start a fire without modern aids? How would you adapt to a world without the comforts and conveniences of modern life? What if ancient humans had access to just one modern tool or invention? How do you think it would change their lives? Would a simple compass help them navigate more easily, or would a knife with a metal blade revolutionize their hunting techniques? What tool would you choose and why? Considering the rapid pace of technological advancement in human history, what do you think ancient humans would find most astonishing about our modern world? Would they be amazed by smartphones and the internet? Or would they be more intrigued by our advanced medicine and transportation? How do you think they would react to seeing a city skyline or flying in an airplane? These questions not only spark our curiosity about the past, but also challenge us to think about the future. What skills and knowledge will our descendants need to survive and thrive in a world that's constantly evolving? What lessons can we learn from our ancient ancestors to prepare for the unknown challenges that lie ahead? As you continue your journey through life, keep these questions in mind, and remember that the story of human survival is a never-ending tale of adaptation, innovation, and perseverance.